Hello, long time no speak. Okay, so to bring you up to speed, that thing behind me is changing because we are going to be sponsored by Explosive Ape. What does that mean? Very little, apart from the fact there'll be Explosive Ape's logos on the back and my new logo as well because I've changed that. So what's been happening? I'm on a diet again. Trying to stick to this one. Otherwise, mainly work stuff really. I've done blood analysis for quite a while, so get blood testing results and I write up a report about what they are and what they mean and how you can change things that are out of whack and all that sort of crap. And then we launched a company called Eval, which did this. And on top of that now, we've added blood testing and bloodletting. Now, it's all based out of our little clinic we've set up in Huddersfield. But one thing I've noticed with doing the blood reports continuously is that a huge number of people have high blood values and there isn't really a reliable letting service. You can use blood donation. Some people feel morally that's wrong because technically as a steroid user, you're not supposed to. That's down to the individual, but the other problem with that is you can only donate once every 12 weeks, and that usually isn't enough to get your values back down. Someone with values, say 210, and I'm saying this because I've had a recent example of this, that's probably going to take 4 bloodlets before that's back down, even at the higher end of range. So it can take a bit to shift these things. On top of that, we're going to be doing IV infusions at the end of March. We start, and we're going to take that on the road. We've got some plans and ideas about things we can do at events and basically being a mobile blood workshop to your gym or your supplement shop and set up for the day. So that's what's been happening business-wise. Coaching is as is, always just plodding along. I've been plagued with, believe it or not, tendinitis in my foot. Started off as I got a little cut between my toes and I got a little bit of an infection in there. That's my fault for running around the garden in my bare feet. Anyway, that cleared up. I was still in pain. They kept telling me it was gout. Now, you think of gout as an old man's disease, and I wasn't happy about the thought that it was gout, but it is common in people with kidney problems. Uric acid does get high in people with kidney problems. So sort of accepted it was part of the course. So changed diet, dropped all my whiskey. Not that I drink huge amounts anyway, but I dropped loads of it. And the pain didn't go away. So I've been limping for 4 months effectively. Now I've trained and I've managed to train, but nowhere near like I'd like to. And cardio has been very, very limited. So it flared up once, but that was over Christmas. So I put that down to having a bit of booze and eating a bit of rich food. But then it flared up again. And I was like, no, this, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing here. This can't be right. So I ended up going to the casualty because it was on a weekend and I just didn't have the painkillers to cope with it. Anyway, surprisingly, because they don't normally do it, they took time to read my notes, have a proper look at me and said straight away, that's not gout. You've got something else seriously going on. Go to your doctors on Monday. We'll send a letter and we'll insist you're referred to a musculoskeletal specialist. We think it's tendinitis, which is the sort of things I'd been saying from day one, but what do I know? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm now referred. So that's that. On another note, I'm in surgery on Monday. As some of you may be aware, I've got Derkham's disease, which means I grow these big lipomas everywhere. It's taken a long, long time to get treatment for this. You can't treat the disease, but you can have the lumps removed. So I'm having my first batch of surgery on Monday to remove lumps. It was supposed to be Wednesday this week. But as I'm going to Amsterdam today, Emmen actually in Holland, flying out to Amsterdam this evening, doing a big seminar over there tomorrow. So that's, I'm looking forward to that. That should be good. Shame it's Valentine's Day today. Oops. Good thing we don't really celebrate it. And I blew up the poaching pan today as well, so I'm going to be in bother. I've had to order a new one, which comes tomorrow, but oops. Anyway, so that's the weekend sort of surgery on Monday, and then hopefully I will have a date for my foot and things can start moving forward. Frustrating. First time in a while I've actually wanted to train and wanted to do stuff, and now I can't, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. In other news, the Chinese raw situation doesn't seem to have anywhere near the impact we first thought it was going to do. It would appear that even the Chinese themselves overreacted, and turns out that enforcement doesn't look to be anywhere near as severe as it was. Prices have crept up with some labs, some haven't. All depends on who's supplying them. I think some have even used it as a fucking excuse to just bump prices up because they're twats. But that's the general gist of what's going on there. In other news around the world of steroids, there's been a couple of press releases in the UK over the last month or so. Bloody hell, it's that long since I spoke to you. One was a 55% increase in police steroid busts in the UK, which isn't really as dramatic as it sounds because they were busting fuck all previously, so any increase in busting was going to yield a huge percentage. And the Alpha Pharma bust, that was a £60 million job, so obviously that's going to add a huge amount to any value of what previously has gone on. So not as dramatic as it first sounds, but there is definitely a change in the winds when it comes to enforcement, and police are definitely starting to take a little bit more interest in steroids. Still not huge. They're still fairly scared of them, don't like them, would prefer to do you for something else if they can, but they are being a little bit more active in pursuing steroid cases. And the other thing was a warning from some health medical organization about a rapid increase in the people having medical issues around steroids. And this, if anything, is what's going to drive pressure for a legal change in the UK. As most of you are aware, steroids are perfectly legal to use and possess, but they're illegal to supply. And that, in theory, should control the drug quite well, because if it can't be supplied, you can't use it. So it would be unnecessary to make users criminals by making the drug illegal. And to be fair, harm reduction people like myself, most of academia who work in the field, so people like Jim McVeigh from John Moores University and Rosie from down in NHS Wales, Martin Chandler, though he's not that involved anymore, all sort of support the fact that criminalisation of usage is going to be a negative step. It's going to push things in the ground. It's going to make it harder to look after people. And the police don't want it. They can't enforce it as it is. They definitely don't want after we start chasing 2 million people because they suddenly become criminals overnight. But this is where we have a problem. It would appear that Boris is definitely fulfilling some of the promises about getting tough on certain elements. There was the recent deportation of immigrants who were criminals or weren't born nationals, and that was the plane that went to Jamaica quite recently, and I'm not going to get involved in whether that was right or wrong. But the general gist was the public have been screaming that why are we imprisoning and spending tax money on people who aren't British when they've committed crimes in the UK? Just send them back to where they come from. So he's done it. Now, this health thing, this is what's going to drive a law change, because if the NHS starts reporting more and more people suffering with health problems from steroids, then there's going to be more of a budget allocated to steroid health problems, and it's going to become more of a significant part of the NHS service. The offset of this is that people whose family members suffer from problems with the drugs aren't going to stand there and say, well, my son or my daughter was a complete fucking knobhead, took these drugs without knowing what they were doing and fucked themselves up. What they're going to say is, these drugs are evil. Poor little Johnny would still be alive or would still be healthy if it wasn't for these evil drugs. Ban them. Because no one likes to take responsibility for what the fuck they do, particularly when they fuck themselves up severely. So as a result, that sort of pressure is going to put with political pressure. You only need somebody to go to an MP in their local region and kick off a storm about the evils of steroids and the media hype that surrounds it, and that MP go into Parliament, and that will start a cascade of driving forward an unnecessary law in order to criminalise the possession of these drugs. I'm not sure it will happen, but we are definitely starting to see the foundations of what would create a case for argument for it to happen. And the law won't be made because they think it's a good decision. The law will be made as a political move to show the public that this current administration is tough on crime, tough on drugs, and all that sort of thing. So the move wouldn't be made out of common sense. It wouldn't be made out of what was healthy for people. It wouldn't be made out of what was effective to enforce for people. It would purely be a vote move. And that's where we're sitting. So if ever there was a need for people to look after themselves as their users, it is now, because it will be the health implications that cause a legal change if there is going to be one. At the moment, pressure isn't huge. We've had a few MPs shout their mouths off a couple of times, and they've never got anywhere. The ACMD is fairly consistent in saying criminalisation of possession of these drugs is not going to serve any benefit. But if people keep fucking themselves up, and the NHS keep coming out with reports that the number of people suffering from severe heart issues and kidney failure and everything else due to steroids is on the rise, then public opinion will start to change. So really, guys, if you want to have this wonderful advantage in the sense that you can legally use these drugs with no fear of repercussion or persecution, then you need to start looking after yourselves and looking after each other, because that's what's going to change it. By the way, I just noticed my beard's getting quite long. Bloody hell. Only taken 9 years. Anyway, so there you go. That's pretty much, I have a shitload of rants coming up, but I will save them for when we've got the new branding. Stuff like, is it now fashionable to do half reps? Because I never see anyone doing a fucking full one, and it seems to be generally accepted, which confuses me. But we'll get into all that shit later. So for now, take care. I'm going to pack my bags because I'm fucking off. Have a good one, and I'll speak to you all on the other side.